Hi, and welcome to another episode of Eating from the Earth. I'll be your host, Laura Boucher. Today on Eating from the Earth, I want to share with you some information that I have gleaned from this amazing book, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom by Acharya Shunya. It has been such an enlightening book. And really, if you're interested in Ayurveda and really getting your health on track, this is a great listen. And it's free to download on Audible, which is awesome. So I will include that link in the description down at the bottom. So check out this book by Acharya Shunya, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom. I'm also going to be sharing with you my ups and downs of my mobile garden. It's definitely been a challenge, and it was my first year gardening, literally about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I guess. I decided that I was no longer going to sport the black thumb of death and I was going to turn it green. And I feel like I've definitely turned it green in some aspects, but I'm learning so much. And as the days go by and weeks go by and my garden flourishes, I learn more and more about gardening. But most importantly, I learn more about myself. And that's kind of what I want to talk about with this book, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom. One of the parts of this book about how really just working with plants can give you the ability to be able to heal from the medicinal properties that are in those plants. And not necessarily consuming the plants, but the medicinal properties that come just from handling the soil, connecting with the plants on a cellular level or vibrational level. The energy the plants give out have the same medicinal value that the actual nutrients in the plant do. Many times you can work with an herb and grow an herb and receive those medicinal benefits just by growing it. So without further ado, let's move on. In the book that I mentioned earlier, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom by Acharya Shunya, she told a very interesting story that had a lot to do with a very common issue and with many people, especially women. So Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom is a pretty hardy book. The listen is 17 hours. So that's, probably a pretty thick book. But it is a great listen, and it can be downloaded for free on Audible. So I will include that link in the description here so that you can download that book and listen to it if you are interested in learning more about Ayurveda. So in this book, she talks about mostly how she learned Ayurveda, how she became an Ayurveda practitioner. Started from literally the time she was born. She was raised by her father and her grandparents. Her mother passed away when she was young. In an Ayurvedic home, her grandfather was an Ayurvedic practitioner who was respected all through India. Hundreds of people a month came to see him and seek advice on healing certain aspects of disease and different things going on with their bodies. And he was very well respected. But in one particular story that I found really compelling was the story about a man who had traveled from a long ways. He was a business owner. He was probably a man of some wealth. He had resources. He traveled to see the grandfather because of a condition called piles. Piles is just a fancy name for hemorrhoids that have gotten really bad. Her description of the pain involved with piles was a nail in the rectum. That sounds terrible. But at any rate, the man was so desperate and so much pain. He traveled this long way, which was probably pretty uncomfortable, riding in a car all the way to see her grandfather. And this is the recommendation that her grandfather gave to him regarding this situation. First thing he said to do was to take 1 year off of his business. And of course, obviously, he had the means and resources to do so, but she recommended taking 1 year off of his business. And during this year, he told him to grow a butterfly pea garden. Butterfly pea plant has been used in Ayurvedic medicine to treat conditions, a wide variety of conditions, including hemorrhoids and piles and poor digestion, constipation, things like that. So the way they use it is the way it's used is it's grown to flower, and then the entire plant is dried and ground up into a powder, and that's how it's consumed. It can be made into a poultice, can be put into a smoothie. You can even take the leaves off the raw plant, soak them in water, and apply them to affected areas. So it's just a really powerful, very medicinal plant that's been used in India for a really long time, and is sold in powder form. You can find it in powder form. But at any rate, his advice was to take a year off work and grow this garden. He said, do not consume any of the plant, only grow it. And because it grows quickly, over a year's time, he could turn that crop over multiple times. And dry the plant, grind it into powder, and bring the powder back to the grandfather as payment for his advice. And this powder would be distributed to people that didn't have resources for medicine. He also gave him advice on diet and on meditation and certain things he could do through yoga and nutrition to help with this constipation, because obviously chronic constipation is what was causing this issue. Now, in Ayurveda, one of the 7 signs of good health is having a good bowel movement every single day. Now, there are people out there who claim that they go 2 to 3 times a week and that for them is regular. That could not be farther from the truth. Only going to the bathroom 2 to 3 times a week is constipation. And constipation in Ayurveda is described as dryness in the colon. Dryness in the colon is when your Vata dosha, which is, you have 3 doshas in Ayurveda, and Vata dosha is out of balance, and the Vata is the dryness of the Vata dosha is spreading throughout the body and really impacting the colon. And when that area is dry, it gets smaller and it contracts and it can't expand in order to have a full release. So the biggest chapter in her book is on constipation, and for good reason. Without the proper and timely elimination of body waste, you are just a habitat for disease, bacteria growth, toxins spreading throughout the body, which is creating disease. So timely evacuation and going to the bathroom, going poop every single day is vitally important to your overall health. So the advice that he gave to this man was to grow this garden, process it into a powder, and bring it back to him and take a year off work. So what I found the most interesting in this is that I had always felt like working with a plant could give you the same medicinal benefits that consuming it could. I felt that just because the plant has a vibration, a healing vibration. When you grow the plant, you become a part of that vibration, which is a healing vibration. The answer to that would be healing, right? That would be the end result. So a year later, this man came back with his wife and his children, and he was smiling and happy. And he said he was healed, and he was no longer suffering from that condition of piles anymore. And they had armloads of this powder that they were bringing to her grandfather to distribute to the people that needed it. uh, uh, Shunya said that uh, the main thing was that eliminating the stress from his business for 1 year was the biggest part of this healing process. And stress affects all three doshas. It affects your entire body, and it affects every function and system of your body. If you are living day in and day out at a job that you hate, at or in a relationship that is bad for you, or anything like that, anything that's causing stress, you're going to see the effects in your body. You're going to have symptoms of that, such as constipation, chronic constipation. So eliminating the stress was a huge part of that, but also growing that garden, that butterfly pea garden that is medicinally used for this condition, helped him overall just by becoming vibrationally equivalent with this plant. That is so powerful. Growing basil, that's going to help you with bacterial infections. Growing thyme would help you with fungal infections, things like that. I know that when you become vibrationally connected to the earth will send the plants to heal you. I can give you a great example of that. My husband and I both became really sick with RSV last winter. And as soon as I felt like I could get back out in my garden, a new plant had popped up in the grass, and I scanned it to find out what it was, and it was the broadleaf plantain. The broadleaf plantain has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for centuries to treat constipation as well, but many, many other things, including treating upper respiratory congestion as a result of a respiratory virus. The earth, because I had become connected to it through gardening, knew knew I was sick, and sent that plant to heal. And since that point, I have noticed more and more that when I become ill, or when I am dealing with a situation, I will find that plant somewhere. That plant will come up. That healing plant that I need will appear in my life somehow. So the earth knows what you need when you become vibrationally connected to it, and growing the medicinal plants that are used for certain diseases and conditions can be as healing as consuming the plant itself. So I found that to be such a fascinating story, and so much confirmation of what I already knew. So anyway, I'm going to go through now some plants that you can grow that can really help you medicinally deal with a lot of different things. So simply growing herbs in an herb garden can really, really help you heal. So cultivating a plant, cultivating a seed, you bring a seed to fruition through your actions. You are connected to that plant from the very start. So growing an herb garden is not only therapeutic, psychologically therapeutic, it can be physically healing. So looking into what parts of the year certain herbs grow. So any herb that you're interested in growing, look at when it's best to plant it, how it grows, if it grows well in containers, or if you need to plant it straight in the ground. Those are all things you need to be looking at. But literally taking that plant from seed to full plant, all through that time, cultivating it, taking care of it daily, checking on it, talking to it, you are going to become vibrationally connected to that plant. And as a result, you are going to find healing. So planting wildflowers, for instance, can be super healing through emotional support. Planting wildflowers, I think, is probably one of the most medicinal things you can do. Wildflowers each wildflower has a different benefits, but they also have different vibrations. For instance, I really love yarrow flowers, and I like to have fresh yarrow flowers in the house as often as I can get them when they're in season. Yarrow flowers bring about a vibration of abundance, happiness, peace, all of those great feelings, but especially abundance. And so, growing yarrow flowers from seed can bring into your life a vibration of abundance. Sunflowers, for instance, sunflowers are called sunflowers not because they look like the sun, even though they do look like the sun. Sunflowers are called sunflowers because they literally follow the sun all day long. So as the sun is going, uh, rising in the east, that sunflower face is facing the sun. And as the sun moves around, the sunflower's face follows it all the way around. The sun in Ayurveda is known to be guidance. Like your solar plexus is yellow and is fed by the sun. So that's your internal guidance system. So sunflowers would bring a vibration of guidance, of support. So growing sunflowers, loving sunflowers, being around sunflowers can help you to experience more divine guidance. All different kinds of sunflowers have different types of vibrations. All different types of flowers, wildflowers have different vibrations. So growing wildflowers can be incredibly medicinal. Growing plants that have medicinal values for different types of diseases like kidney diseases or digestive disorders or autoimmune diseases, like primrose. Primrose is great for autoimmune disease. Any kind of autoimmune disease, evening primrose is a great support system. Growing that and ingesting it, making a tea out of it, is going to be hugely helpful, and has been for me helpful in silencing the effects of autoimmune disease like fibromyalgia. Herbs, medicinal, but so tasty. Kitchen herbs are a great option. Kitchen herbs like basil and thyme and cilantro and all these different herbs that you can grow easily, different types of mint that can be grown in containers, are great because they all have different medicinal properties, but they're great to add into your food. And there's nothing that tastes better than a fresh herb right out of the garden. So, take some time and research this, and take a look at what herbs might do well for you, and intuitively kind of seek those out. And if it's something that you want to start doing, you are intuitively going to be guided towards the ones that you need. Okay, so here's a little snippet of my garden, of what I've got growing. I've had some successes and I've had some failures. Fortunately, I've had more success than failure, but through the failure, I learned really important lessons. And so the first thing that if you're growing a garden that you want compost. Well, my garden is a portable garden. And when I say portable, I mean I started my garden in January in Naples, Florida. It wasn't ready to harvest yet. So I took it with me. We took it with us all the way across the country from Naples, Florida, all the way to northern Arizona. We had many stops in between, and we spent a couple of weeks in a couple of different places. So when we first left, I had already had my compost ready. So here's how I made my portable compost. So I took 2 5-gallon buckets and 1 lid. And in one of those 5-gallon buckets, the blue one, I drilled a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of it so it could have drainage, and all of the excess liquid could drain out into the bottom bucket. So I placed the blue bucket with all the holes in it, inside the orange bucket, which had no holes in it. And then I started composting in there. I have a small composting can that I keep inside like, about like this big, that stays inside a countertop composting can, which I put all of my vegetable scraps in, and washed, cleaned, and dried eggshells. You don't want to put those in there without washing and drying them, because they will rot and that will stink up your compost. But I have eggs, and then I dump it into this in here. But I also put into there some straw and some soil, a little soil. The straw is to balance out the green and the brown. The green is the scraps, the brown is the dirt, and the compost will help to balance that out. It will keep you from getting maggots in your compost. And if you're traveling with your compost, which means it's going to be inside whatever you're traveling in, you really don't want maggots in there. So, so that is how I compost, and I do compost everything. So it's very important to me to have that available. My first plants that I planted were cucumbers and tomatoes, and I was taking gardening lessons from my friend Candace, and we were, just planting out several of them, and plant a whole bunch of them, because not all of them will make it. That concept is kind of what got me into trouble, because I didn't completely understand how that worked. So I planted probably about 6 cucumber plants in this one big tub with holes in the bottom for drainage. But I don't think I put enough holes in the bottom, because I wound up with blight, and that is a fungus, and it has taken almost all of my cucumber plants, and these last 2 that are left are going to have to go, because they are not doing well either. So my lesson that I learned in this is that I don't travel with raised bed gardens with they need to be in individual pots. Each plant needs its individual pot. So here's how we got the fungus. On our way from South Florida to Arizona, we stopped in Texas first. Well, actually, we stopped in Louisiana first, and we got a fair amount of rain there. And then we stopped in Texas, where we got torrential rains, tremendous rains. All of this is so good for my garden. My garden was so happy. But then we got further west into New Mexico, where we spent a week. We got quite a bit of rain in New Mexico too, surprisingly. But then we finally made it to Camp Verde, Arizona, which is in it's kind of northern Arizona, but it is closer to Phoenix than my plants would have liked us to be. But it's about an hour and a half north of Phoenix. It's in the Verde Valley, so it's down in the valley. So it gets really, really hot. And this summer in particular was a special kind of hot. It was 110, 115 every single day. No rain, not a drop of rain. It was raining all around the valley. I could see it in the mountains. I could see it raining everywhere else, but it wasn't coming into the valley. So not only were my plants drying out and just getting sad, we were drying out, getting sad. So we made the decision to move a little further north, and we're up in Flagstaff now. But during that time that we spent in Camp Verde, which was a couple of months, I was overwatering my plants, trying to overcompensate for the lack of rain. The water coming out of my water hose was not the same as the rain. The rain aerates the soil. I did not have mulch at that time over the top of the soil, which I should have. That would have helped to keep the fungus down. But I did not have that. And so I overwatered. The drainage was not good, and I wound up with a fungus. And now anything that I plant in that soil is going to have that fungus. And I did not know that. And now I do. And now I'm working on fixing it. So that's going to be completely disassembled. But the lesson I learned, like I said, was to plant these in individual pots if I'm going to be traveling with them. And I think, honestly, planting them in individual pots, if I'm going to do container gardening, is probably the best thing. One pot, one plant, one pot. So I've now had a second try at my tomatoes. I have not tried cucumbers again yet. I will try those later on. But my second try at tomatoes is doing a little better. As you can see, they down right below the cucumbers in the bottom picture here on the right-hand side, you'll see I have a couple of tomato plants in their own containers growing nicely. So we'll see how they wind up doing. And the picture right down here, right below me, that is that is a big portion of my garden. And I'm going to go through in the next slide what's actually in here. But, overall, traveling with a garden, I feel like I've done pretty good. I've been pretty successful. I get tons of compliments. I do harvest a lot of things. I harvest lots of herbs and lettuces, and I've been able to harvest a couple of cucumbers and one teensy weensy tiny tomato. I don't know what that was about, but I guess that's the blight that these poor plants are dealing with. So anyway, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so here are some of the plants that I started in Naples and brought with me, and some that have grown since we've arrived in Arizona. And just as a side note, since we've moved up to Flagstaff and gotten out of that heat in the valley, my plants have just flourished. They are doing so well. So the first thing I want to talk about is this guardian plant right here. That's not what the plant is called, but that's what I'm using it as a guardian. So I put it in front of my edible plants, and in combination with diatomaceous earth, these plants are used for food for the bugs, and they'll eat those leaves on those big elephant ear plants before they'll come after my vegetables. Now, the white that you see on the basil plant over here on the right, that is diatomaceous earth, and that is to help keep the bugs with the exoskeletons from eating up the leaves of my plant. That diatomaceous earth kills the bug by drying it out, but it also kind of deters bugs from coming along. So I usually keep it sprinkled on the plants. And by the way, plants love diatomaceous earth. They love that stuff, just like they love different kinds of fertilizers. That stuff is great. And diatomaceous earth, if you don't know, it is ground up fossilized seashells. And you can work it into your soil. You can sprinkle it on the outside of the plant. It is just really good to keep bugs away. So the second plant here you see right to the right of the guardian plants, that is something that it popped up in the soil on the ground where my garden needed to go in Camp Verde. And well, actually where a couple of plants needed to go but you see it's fairly new, so I haven't had it that long. But I needed to put something where that particular plant was. So I gently took it out of the ground, being careful not to break its taproot. And I put it into some soil, and it's really doing well. It's a nice little succulent. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's just really cute. And it makes these little yellow flowers. So now it's part of my garden. I don't know what it is, but I like it. And I know the earth sends what I need when I need it. So I'm trusting that. And that is one of the reasons that I had so many cucumber plants, because I didn't have the heart to kill any of them. So I just let them grow. And, that was in the end detrimental to my garden. My basil here, I was gifted this by a dear friend, my good friend Roman in Naples. He gave me this basil plant when I first started gardening, and this thing has given us so much basil over the last several months. And I literally go out there and clip off big hunks of it every single day, and I cook with it. And by the time I go back the next day, more and more has grown. So it loves to be trimmed and harvested, and it goes in almost every dish I make, and it's so fragrant and delicious. And basil is so freaking good for you. Like, it is good for urinary tract infections. It's good for fungal infections. It's good for bacterial infections. It's good for all kinds of things. You can actually boil it down in some water and mix that with some kind of safe detergent. So I would say like a sulfate phosphate free cleaning agent or something like that, and some water, and create a really good antibacterial cleaner for your home. You can even add a little bit of a witch hazel to it to kind of bind everything together. But basil is excellent for cleaning. Right down here, first plant here on right here on your left, your first plant, that grass with the cats around it, that is my wheatgrass that I've been growing for a while for the cats. And this one has done really well. It's just really crazy growing, and the cats love it. And I bring it in every couple of days and they mow it all down for me. I grow it, send it back out, and within 2 days, it's right back again. So um, I grow that for them, but also wheatgrass is really, really medicinally good for humans as well. It's great in smoothies and that sort of thing, but I don't consume the wheatgrass. I don't consume any grains or grasses at all. So growing that is medicinally effective. Just growing it and having it in my vibration is helping. So it's they like to munch on it, and the nutrients that I get by handling it is giving me benefits as well. Down here in the far right hand corner, you see these two pictures. This is purslane. I was gifted this by my friend Candace from her garden to make some tea with, but I decided to plant it instead because the roots were intact. And I'm so glad I did. It has just exploded and taken off. This came from one little tiny piece that came out of her garden. And funny story, when we were traveling in our fifth wheel, we have a fifth wheel with a drop down porch, and we slide all our plants out onto the porch when we stop, and then bring them back in and travel further. But when we were traveling, I had hung this plant up over the rest of the plants because it was a hanging plant. So I just hung it up and let it right up there. Well, she scattered her seeds everywhere while we were traveling, all the bumps and boom, 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 boom. And she was just spreading seed everywhere. And every plant I owned popped purslane. So I moved all of these into a different pot, and now I have a second pot growing of purslane. Purslane is great for kidney issues, diabetes, blood sugar issues, hypoglycemia. It's good for any kind of adrenal fatigue, pancreatic issues. Purslane is really good for that. Purslane is really good too for topical for burns and wounds. It's great to just sprinkle on your salad and just add a little flavor to your salad. The entire plant is edible from root to leaf, and it can be ground up and mixed into a tea, dried and ground and mixed into a tea, or you can cut a branch off and like a sprig off and drop it in boiling water and drink the tea like that. That works really well as well. So those are just purslane is you should have purslane. You should have purslane. It is a great plant. So that's a portion of my garden. We'll move on to the next slide, and I'll show you some different plants I have in the garden as well. So here I have some other plants I'm growing. Most of these have been store-bought plants that I have just replanted and grown from the store-bought root. So, or the not root, but the store-bought the seeds that are in the plant. So the bok choy, although I did plant the bok choy and the carrots from seed, but the bok choy I planted just maybe a month and a half ago from seed. And the first picture on the left in the blue barrel, that is a 5-gallon bucket from Lowe's, and I drilled a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of it. A lot more than I had previously in my raised bed, because I learned my lesson about fungus. So I want my soil and my bucket to be really well draining. And I gave the bok choy a deep space to really, grow the big bottom part of the plant. I love bok choy. It's one of my favorite foods to eat. I love to cook it on the Blackstone. And I cut the green top off and cut that up and saute it with some onions and garlic and things like that, and eat that like greens. The bulb part I slice in half and I grill in avocado oil with garlic and salt and pepper, and I grill both sides. It's tender, it's tasty, juicy, just so flavorful. I love bok choy. So the one in the blue on the left is a good bok choy plant that has been growing for a while, and the one on the right are just some late blooming seeds that popped in that blue one. So I moved it into its own container, so it had its own deep soil to grow in. So I should have about 5 or 6 bok choy plants ready to go, or hopefully, harvests in the next month or so. Down below that, on the left hand side, I have tried to grow onions from seed multiple times, and they never ever do anything. So I said, well, we bought some green onions at Whole Foods and they were organic. I said, let me just give these a try. And voila, I have onion sprouts. So I'll be just trimming the tops off of these when I want green onions. And then to the right of the green onions, there's my carrot sprouts. And those are really hard to sprout. The carrots are really hard to sprout, but they've sprouted. And you can't really see them in the picture because of all the diatomaceous earth, but they are about this big, and their true leaves have sprouted, and they're kind of wiry, and all different kinds. So just a cool thing about carrots is carrots are very nutritious. They're really good for constipation. So if you are dealing with constipation, carrots should be something you should be eating. Carrots and Brussels sprouts are something you should be eating at least once or twice a week. But you get the majority of the nutritional value from the green parts, that the sprouts that come out of the carrots. So once they grow bigger, trimming a little bit of that off, adding it to your salad, that can really be very nutritionally beneficial for you, especially with constipation. And, I can't say it enough. It is literally one of the most important things that needs to happen in your body is you need to poop every day. And so many of your problems will go away. To the right of the carrot sprouts, you see my little green pepper. So I bought these little, and I did this back when I was in Naples. Actually, I did this back when we were in Naples. I just planted it down in my raised bed garden. I literally took the end of a sweet pepper, those little colorful rainbow sweet peppers. I cut the end off of one and I stuck it down into my raised bed garden. I just literally went bloop and stuck it down in there. And within about a week, it popped up a little pepper plant. And I had tons of them that popped up because there was a bunch of seeds in that one. And I gave a bunch away. But here I have 4. I have 4 plants. Well, I'm going to say 3.5 because as we were moving the plants here out of the toy hauler, one of them broke, but we were able to salvage the stem that broke, reroot it, and I just planted it down next to its where it was broken off of, and I think it's going to come back fine. But on the 3 plants that I have planted together, they are doing so well, and they have so many peppers on them, and I'm looking forward to tasting those. I know they're going to be delicious. So those are my sweet rainbow peppers. And again, those were grown from store-bought as well. So you can grow a lot of vegetables from your store-bought vegetables, potatoes, zucchini, squash, anything like that. You can just, plant, you can root it, or you can just plant the end and let it do its thing. But different plants require, different types of cultivating. So, read up on that before you just, shove it down in the dirt. You might make a plant, you might make compost. But at any rate, such a great way to preserve the environment, utilize scraps and never run out and not have to buy it over and over again. In addition to all of the vegetables that I just showed you, I also have a big arugula and spinach garden in some cement mixing trays that you can find at Lowe's and Home Depot. They're about this deep, and they're about anywhere between 3 and 5 feet wide. And I just drill a whole bunch of holes in the bottom, and I planted a lot of arugula and spinach in these containers, and I harvest from the outside in, and I have a never-ending supply of arugula. We have arugula we can have something with arugula every single night. I have that much, and it grows like that, and it's so easy to grow. Spinach has not proven to be quite as easy, but it's coming along. I'm also experimenting with microgreens, arugula microgreens. So I've planted those a little differently, and they are also sprouting. Now, I wanted to talk about how eating from the earth should look. Now, I really like foraging. I love to go into the woods here in Flagstaff and forage for mushrooms. I went into the mountains in Sedona and I foraged some berries that I turned into sugar. It's called manzanita berries. They're hard little berries. I turned it into a really mild sugar that I use in different recipes. But um, you know, you can live and you can eat as if you were hunting, gathering, or foraging. So, using common sense, thinking about how if you were gathering, you would not gather anything that was in a package. Unless you were gathering from the grocery store. But if you were gathering in the wilderness, you would not be gathering anything in a package. You would not be gathering anything that was processed. And of course, all food has to be processed in order to be eaten. Well, not all food, but most food, if you want to cook it or like when I processed my manzanita berries, I had to process them, but I did that without chemicals. I did that without anything toxic, and I did that without harming the plant. So if you're eating as if you were hunting, gathering, and foraging, this is what it would look like. Grass-fed meat. And I would say probably no pork. And I know that's like a touchy subject with people, especially when it comes to bacon. But pork is just not a great meat to eat. It's really not good for our bodies. It is an unclean animal, and the meat is full of sodium that our bodies it's an excess of sodium. So I would say that pork would be a no-go. But going to a butcher and buying grass-fed meat from your grocery store. Walmart has grass-fed meat available now. I've seen it there. And that is one way that you can eat as if you were hunting your own food, eating food that is eating from the earth, right? Gathering would look like buying your fruits and berries and that sort of thing from a farmer's market or from an individual grower, or grow your own. Hey, if I can do it on the road all the way from Florida to Arizona, you should be able to grow a little something, maybe, you know, but, and of course I know time constraints and all that, but gathering would look like getting your vegetable, your fruits, your berries, that sort of thing from a farmer's market, from an individual grower. Now, let me just give one word of caution about farmers markets. Not all farmers markets are created equally, and not all vegetable dealers at farmers markets are gardeners, or are they getting from a gardener? Many of these people that sell vegetables at farmers markets today are getting their vegetables from Costco, and they're breaking them up into individual packages and selling them as their own creation. It's not. And you'll know when you cut into the vegetable if it's homegrown or if it's stuff from another store. So make sure you're asking the right questions at farmers market. Did you grow this? Who is your grower? Do your research. Is it organic? Maybe visit the farm. That is a great way of gathering, right? You're gathering good, nutritious good soil grown foods. And then eating as if you were foraging. What would you be able to forage? You would be able to forage things like mushrooms. That's one of my favorite things to forage. Medicinal plants like mullein. All different kinds of plants and vegetables and things that you would be able to find in certain areas. And another way to forage without foraging is to eat eat with the seasons, eat what's seasonally grown. So if something is out of season in your area and your grocery store has it, it's because it came from a different area. And now remember, your body is in vibrational agreement with the area that you're in. So if you're eating food that is not seasonal in your area, that's not in season in your area, and you're eating it fresh and it hasn't been picked fresh from your area and then preserved, like in a can, canning or whatever, then you're not going to get the benefit from that plant that you would if you were eating it from the area that you're in its season. Not to mention, so much of the nutrients are lost in transport and then storage and cold and hot and cold and hot. These vegetables are not quality, and that's why preservatives are used in a lot of the store-bought vegetables. Not to mention things like lac resin and wax and petroleum that they put on the outside of the vegetables that make them beautiful. So foraging would definitely look like eating from the earth seasonally. So eating what's in season in your area. If you eat consistently as if you were hunting, gathering, and foraging, you're going to see a difference in your energy levels, in your brain fog, in your weight, in your sugar levels, cholesterol levels. All of that is going to change. All of it is going to change because food is medicine and medicine is food. Medicine should be food. So let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So as you're going through this week, maybe kind of think about some things that you could do that would emulate a lifestyle of hunting, gathering, and foraging, and just see how food tastes different to you. See how food affects you differently. You never know. But wrapping up today's episode, thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure and pick up a copy of the Ayurveda Lifestyle book by I'm sorry, I don't have her name in front of me, so I can't say it, but Shunya is her first name. So if you have, it's a long book. It's a 17-hour listen. So it's probably a pretty thick book. I haven't purchased the book yet, but just by listening to this book, I have learned so much, and not only have I learned a lot, but it has confirmed things that I thought to be true. So pick that up. And also I'll include a link to my book, For the Love of Gut, in the comments as well. And follow me on Facebook at Maximum Health. There'll be a link for that. And please like and subscribe to my channel. I usually post 2 to 3 of these podcasts a week, talking about things that have helped me heal that I can share with you. So thanks for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and just keep on working on improving that gut health.